Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome again to another wonderful conversation with Good Talks with Bad Moms. And I just wanted to point out, I know it says Bad Moms plural. Just wanted to let everyone know I take accountability for all of those moms in the plural. Okay, so it's Bad Moms for a reason. Multiple moms. All right, I don't have a personality disorder. Don't worry, I was just joking around. Today, you guys, I have a wonderful guest. I have a wonderful guest today with me. She actually stayed up. I don't know how long she stays up, actually. She's in New York, so she might be a night owl. Live from New York, she's joining me. Anna Bruno. She's by profession. She understands money, and she's here to share her insights and her perspectives about money and success and how exactly that can translate into our lives, how we can see that manifest in our lives. She also did a TED Talk. She'll tell us a little about that as well. And she's been traveling lately, going to conferences, traveling out of state internationally. So I really want her to join us, tell us about her experience as a financial consultant, and teach us a thing or two that can help us in our own lives today by offering us little gold nuggets in form of thought. Thank you so much, Anna, for joining. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Nar. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone. Hello. Um, yes, I am in New York and it's late, but I'm used to it. Just very happy to be here with you and looking forward to our discussions. And everything is, like sort of nothing is off limits. You can ask me any questions you want. We can talk about money. We can talk about success. We can talk about being a good mom or a bad mom, or the definition of a good mom or a bad mom. So I'm looking forward to having a really interesting conversation with you.
Right up my alley with this conversation already. So uh, it shows. Okay, so I actually want to tell the audience how we met.
Okay.
We met yesterday in a Telegram chat that was put together by a friend who I trust, whom she met, and she immediately, she's the type of person you could tell she's sending the message first. She's saying hello to everyone first. She's shaking everyone's hand first. Then I resonated with that energy, so I followed suit. She introduced herself. I introduced myself, and immediately she said, "Hey, like I'd like to do a show. Yes, I'd love for you to do a show. Let's talk." I love that energy about her, and turns out I wasn't wrong about her energy. She's exactly the person she appears to be, and I love that authenticity about her. The confidence is amazing, and again, just resonated with you deeply. I know we've never met, but I can read energy, and I'm usually never wrong.
Well,
Usually
that's
never.
amazing. Yeah, but again, it all comes with time and with experience, obviously, um, the confidence and everything else. I mean, I guess looking back, I can say that I was always confident, but obviously as I'm getting older, it's not that I was less confident before and I'm more confident now. It's just that as you get older, you just don't care about bullshit. Excuse my language. Maybe I shouldn't be using that language, but
No, no, this
you
is
just
called
don't
Bad
care about other
Moms.
people's opinions, let's just say. Okay, you don't care about other people's opinions, right? I mean, you do care in a way, but at the same time, I don't really care. I think, one thing I try to teach my kids is like, you know, just because somebody has an opinion doesn't mean it's right, or it could be wrong, or just, use your head and decide whether whatever somebody's telling you is right or wrong, or true or false.
And it's unfortunate because we're in a society where that is expected from people. Like, trust the opinion. That's why we have things like Yelp. Everyone goes to that before they go to the actual place. It could be an excellent place, but because somebody's opinion was written down on some sort of site, that is gold. It's weight in gold. And that's
It's
unfortunate.
called, yes, it's called a herd mentality.
Yeah.
I'm very big into like psychology, and like I like to talk a lot about not only about just money and investing, because obviously that's my profession, but I also talk about psychology of money, psychology behind how people view money and how people relate to money and what their relationship is with money. But what you just said about opinions and so on, it's there's a term in behavioral science. It's called herd mentality, and what it basically means is that a lot of people would rather follow the masses than make their own decision. For example, they've done a lot of research on this, and they'll have, let's say, they'll ask a question, and even if, let's say, there's 50 people in the room or 100 people in the room, even if you know the right answer, but if enough people shout out the wrong answer, you're gonna like basically follow them. You're gonna think they're right just because there's more of them that is, giving a different answer than you are. And it's fascinating to see how our brains work and how our emotions work and how that affects us in a daily basis.
And the herd mentality, the reason why people feel comfortable with it is because it's a tested and tried result, I suppose. Like, oh, this guy went to this restaurant, tasted good, must taste good for me too. Like, let me go try it. Versus taking a leap of faith and going to like a random place and trying it and giving your own perspective about that and making that based upon your own life experiences, not someone else's. So people are just finding it easier to go with the flow.
Yeah, I guess people find it easier to go with the flow, and and I guess that's what differentiates the leaders from the followers, right? Because you you have the ability to kind of figure out, am I going to follow the masses, or am I going to have my own stand, and I'm gonna like sort of believe in my own belief system. And oftentimes, I think the conference that I just attended, where I met Ernie, your friend, through whom we met, I think the Patrick was talking about the fact that people tend to they worry too much about it's not easy to outlast each other. Basically, that's kind of they went into this whole thing. But anyway, the thing that I like to talk about a lot, obviously, is people's relationship with their look, obviously, like people's relationship with money. And just like everything else, it has a lot to do with your childhood. Everything stems from your childhood, right?
Right.
The kind of person that we become, or you know um how we deal with things, how we handle things, how do we handle stress. A lot of it comes from even communication. I was reading an article about communication, and it says, you know the speaker says something, and it's encoded, and it goes to the listener, and the listener has to decode what you're saying. But when they're decoding what you're saying, they're utilizing a lot of their own biases.
Right.
And that comes from their experience. It comes from their own belief systems. It comes from their, I guess some of it comes from personality. So even that communication that happens even between you and I, I'm saying something, your brain's processing it, right? And vice versa. And it's just, to me, I find it to be fascinating to see how human beings, how we are, how we evolve, how we operate, how we make decisions.
Then we would agree that a lot of these conflicts that occur are just a massive misunderstanding between people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, massive misunderstanding. And also, like I said, sometimes people take things too seriously. Just because
Or not
somebody
serious,
said something. What's that?
or not seriously enough.
Right. I mean, it's not seriously enough, or sometimes they take things too seriously. And I think sometimes it takes a huge catalyst in your life to really sort of wake up and say, don't sweat the small stuff, right? This is not that important. Maybe right now, this moment, whatever you're going through obviously feels, much bigger than what it is. And then over time, it's going to diminish. Its importance is going to diminish. And I'll do a parallel towards money with that, because in investing is the same thing. Oftentimes when you're investing and you're looking at a daily, um, let's say daily performance charts of any, like the S&P 500 index or any stock that you want, on a daily basis, you could have all kinds of crazy things happening. The investments can go up and down. But, one of the things that I teach in my psychology money courses is the fact that, you have to always step back and look at the occurrence for the long period of time. Because if you take that one little thing, even if the market drops 20-30% in one day, um, that day or that week is going to have a significant effect on your portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's just going to be a little blimp over time. So I think, again, one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves is to really learn to how to sort of um, understand our emotions, decode our emotions, and once we learn and understand how to decode our emotions, we'll be able to handle certain things, certain
Mm-hmm.
events much better, and we'll be able to make better decisions and make less emotional decisions.
And of course, you're referring to finances when you're saying less emotional decisions about it, because a lot of the downfall that people experience, I myself included financially, are because of emotional purchases. Um, so then when you take the emotion out of the purchase, it becomes, the item itself becomes so insignificant, you know? Um, so then, how do we help people change their perspective? Because I feel like that's the key thing to helping people financially gain success, because their perspectives are off. So, what would you say in your career thus far as a consultant, financial consultant? What would you say the one perspective that you could change? What would it be that would help people tremendously in their financial careers?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen in the last 25 years that I've been doing consulting work, especially personal finance, is the fact that people think that you have to make a lot of money to become wealthy. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. People think, oh, I have to make a lot of money in order to start investing. And the truth of the matter is, it's not true at all. For example, I had many, many, many clients who were making millions of dollars a year. And when it came down to like retirement, they had nothing to show for. They
Mm-hmm.
lived a big life. They went on to really nice vacations. They had big homes and nice cars and whatever. They lived a very nice life, but they weren't able to find that balance between living now and also preparing for later. And I've also had clients who were regular people with regular jobs, making regular income, middle class income, and they were able to save money and become wealthy. So it's all relevant. People think, oh, you have to make a lot of money to be wealthy. That is the least, that is the biggest misconception. And then the other thing is, there's a big difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So the mentality of rich is very different than mentality of wealthy.
Okay.
So once you understand that and you sort of shift from rich mentality to wealthy mentality, then everything changes.
Yeah, and I feel like in order for people to understand what rich and wealthy are, is for them to understand their own personal relationship with money. So, how does one do that? How does one assess themselves in reference to their money? Because, yeah, they could be making a lot of money, but have a lot of expenses.
Well, we have a beautiful, like it's like a questionnaire, quiz, you want to call it. We have like a self-assessment test that we give out to people. And if your audience is interested, we can certainly send the self-assessment to people to figure out what their relationship is with money. But basically, you need to ask yourself a lot of really important questions. And some of the questions are, and even if you like, when you're looking at money, you ask yourself, when I think about money, how am I feeling? Like, do I feel anxiety when I'm talking about money, when I'm thinking about my money, when I'm thinking about my retirement account or my bank account? When I think about money or earning money, do I get excited about it, or do I get anxious about it? So that's the first telling sign. Like I said, a lot of that comes from your experiences. It could start from childhood, or it doesn't have to be just childhood. It could also be adult experiences. For example, when I first became a financial consultant, I mean, I lived through a couple of big market downturns over time, because I've been doing this for a while. But I remember a couple of them that they had a big impact on me. I remember when, I don't know if you recall that Y2K, you remember when it was, we were turning into the
Right.
millennium. We were like, everybody was like Y2K, why everybody was so concerned that everything's gonna, like, all the computers were gonna stop working. So the market was reacting to that. But then there were a couple of other major sessions. And I remember one time I went to Germany to visit with some of my clients, and I left my office in New York City. I was in a taxi going to the airport, and this was the dot-com boom. It was like everybody was buying stocks. It didn't matter what you were buying. Everything was going up. Everything was like smart. Everybody was like a smart investor. So I'm sitting in a taxi, and this guy, I don't know, could have been some immigrant person from some country, driving this yellow cab. And while he's driving me to the airport, he's buying stocks on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it should have been such a telling sign for me. I was like, wow, there is this other theory in finance. It's called the odd lot theory. And basically, the odd lot theory says that the small people, or when I say small people, I don't mean small, I mean the non-sophisticated investor is always wrong. So the theory behind odd lot theory is that the non-sophisticated investor is always wrong. So people, when they buy in odd lots, which is with, let's say, shares of, let's say, 32 shares of a stock,
Mm-hmm.
or 55 or whatever, right? Those are odd lots. And if you're buying 100 shares, 1,000 shares, and whatever, those are even lots. So there's actually a whole, like, there's a they tracking all this data, and they see that a lot of times these money managers, this like let's say hedge fund managers or mutual fund managers, they look at this data and they're like, okay, what's happening? What is the small investor doing? Because the theory says the small investor or the unsophisticated investor is always wrong, and they're always right. So
So hold
going
on,
back
hold
to,
on. So they bet against the small
yeah,
investors, what
so
you're
if they
saying.
see if they see a lot more people who are buying odd lot stocks, meaning they're buying shares that are numbers are in odd lots, right?
Yeah, got
Let's say
that.
they're buying, that means it's time to sell. That means the market is overvalued and it's time to sell. These are theories, by the way.
Makes
Just
sense.
theories.
It
And
makes sense.
if they see those, odd lots are being, there's more purchases, it's basically it's time to, like, sell, and vice versa. If they're saying, if they see a lot of the unsophisticated investors selling, it's usually a sign to buy. But anyway, going back to my story.
Before you go back to the story, because this is a very
Okay.
interesting theory that you presented to us. So with that take, all of the people who were buying these bitcoins and mitcoins and all these coins, they essentially contributed to the what's happening right now with the markets. Because
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And again, unfortunately, what happens is that, we don't all have access to the same information at the same time. Unfortunately, that's the case. Like the professional money managers that just have more resources, and they have access to information much faster, much better. Typically, by the time, the small investors figure out what it is that they should be buying, it's usually too late. This is why there is another theory. You can see I have a lot of theories, and I love theories. And I told you I'm, like, passionate about behavioral finance. There is another theory that says that you should not be playing the market. You should not be trying to time the market. Just don't time the market. Just buy good quality stocks and leave them alone.
mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to, like, be like that's another misconception. You asked me about misconceptions, like what people should do. People think they have to be so smart to do well in the stock market or investing, and that's furthest from the truth. That is not true at all. Any simple person can do very well in the stock market, because you really, like, all you have to do is, like, you could literally buy the S&P 500 index, right? It's one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest, most well-known indices, and just dollar cost average into this, or pick a few indices, and you don't have to play the market. You don't have to try to outsmart the market and do all that stuff, and you'll be fine, and you'll do just fine. And if any of your audience, if they haven't read this book called Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, I highly, highly recommend it. This gentleman who was a writer about, he wrote a lot of finance articles for many, many years. He wrote that book, and one of the stories in the book, he compared two real life people um, in his book with each other, and he calls it the tale of two paths. The tale of two paths.
Okay.
And he takes this one unsophisticated guy who is who was like a janitor, who never went to, like, I think either he didn't, like, never went to college, never graduated like college or anything like that. He was just a janitor working for some company or JC Penney or something like that. And he was comparing this unsophisticated guy to another guy who went to Harvard University, who was like a big vice president at Merrill Lynch, who was making a lot of money, whose opinion was very important. He was well respected in the finance community and so on. And he was comparing these two parallel lives of these people. And apparently, according to the book, when they died, apparently they died either the same year or in a similar time, and their names were both mentioned, like they became famous for the wrong reasons, because this guy, his name is Richard Ronald Reed. So Ronald Reed, the janitor, he says if you go Google, he is probably the only janitor whose name is associated with janitor and philanthropist at the same time, because when he died and they went to go through his his finances and his, like, the filing his last tax return and so on, his family discovered that he had accumulated, guess how much do you think a janitor making, I don't know, maybe let's say $30,000 a year would have accumulated just doing basic stuff, buying simple, blue chip stocks. Basically, that's all he was doing. He was not sophisticated investor. He did not have any formal, like a financial
Yeah.
education or anything like that. How much money do you think a person who is just a basic
Five
guy,
million dollars.
how much?
$5 million.
You're close. It's actually 8 million.
Okay.
$8 million. He was able to accumulate $8 million, and then he donated some of it to his charities, like charities of his choice. So going back to what I was saying, like, this is the only person whose name is associated with being a janitor and philanthropist at the same time, because he was able to do that. And then he compares this gentleman, this unsophisticated person who didn't do market analysis, who didn't try to overweigh and underweigh different sectors and all this stuff, right? All this sexy stuff that a lot of money managers do. And then he compares it to this other guy, Richard Fascone, who is the Harvard graduate, who was a Merrill Lynch executive, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And this guy, the Richard Fascone, basically retires at an early age, and then they show like the picture of his house. It's true, like real story, real people, and he had this like $10 million like house, like a mansion in Greenwich Village in Connecticut, which is here on the East Coast, and he was living this lavish lifestyle, making like had
Right.
all kinds of celebrity parties and so on. But then what happens is when he dies penniless. And then when 2007, 2008 real estate market, remember that the real estate market,
Yeah.
the
Drop.
downturn happened. So he lost a lot of money in that because he was over leveraged and he had made the wrong bets. He was overconfident in his abilities. That's another theory, by the way, which we'll talk about.
Is it
But
is it
anyways,
like that
these
right
are real
now?
life stories.
Is it
So
like
what
that?
is my point here? My point is that you do not need to be sophisticated. You do not to be need to like know all these crazy theories or formulas
But
or
before, I'm so sorry. But because people are not sophisticated and they get told not to worry about being sophisticated or not, I feel like that takes away their responsibility of actually learning about the money and how it works. Um,
that's a good point.
yeah,
That's a good point. And here's what I would say. You don't want to be in either extreme, right? You
right.
don't want to like one extreme is that you're like, "Oh, okay, I don't know anything, so I shouldn't even start. I shouldn't even try because I don't know anything about money." Like I had so many clients, I would sit down with them and they were like, "No, no, 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 don't talk to me. I trust you. Just do it." I'm like, "No, I can't do that. I have to explain to you. I have to educate you. You have to understand what you're doing, what your choices are." So neither extreme is okay. You don't want to be in a mindset where it's like, oh, I'm not good with numbers. I don't know anything. So might as well just throw the towel and do nothing, right? So that's one camp. And the other camp is like, oh my God, I know it all. I am so good, and it's like the overconfidence bias. They're overconfident. And sometimes people forget that a lot of the times, especially when it comes to investing, the luck is very important. There's a lot of luck involved in making the right decisions when it comes to investing, and not just only in investing, in business as well.
So,
Like
like,
when you see these biggest companies that have done so well, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Apple, yes, there were a lot of very smart people and geniuses, right, who started these companies. But there is a lot of element of luck involved as well, because even with the case of Netflix, because I was watching a documentary the other day about how Netflix got started and so on, and it's like basically two friends
I was
got
gonna,
together.
I was actually gonna say, with I want to actually get to know more about you personally because, yes, although these companies exist and they're big conglomerates, I'd rather speak about what you're doing because you don't have a small resume either. You know, you have a lot of years of consulting under your belt. You're 25 years in. You're obviously very knowledgeable about many things that relate to the consulting and financial world. But also, you said earlier in our pre conversation that you did a TED talk. And I feel like that is an important TED talk to have because, and you'll tell us a little bit about it. And I want people to actually go and watch it if it's available.
Yes, of course it is.
But your TED talk and the topic about it, I feel like it's important and the reason why most people do not achieve financial success because of their ideas about what kind of position they're in or labeled as. So I really want to talk about that because we do have an hour of shooting time. So I want it to be about you so we can share this with our audience.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I have an interesting story, but probably in the US, there's a lot of people that have similar stories. I know I'm an immigrant. I was born in Armenia. I came to United States on my own. I came to attend university here, and then I ended up making a life for myself. But it's the whole like how you handle things. How do you handle um, problems or obstacles or unexpected situations? Really make you who you are, I guess, ultimately. The TED Talk was about the it was about how we all get judged based on our profession, because especially in the US, it's not like this in Europe or even in like other countries. In the US, it's so funny because over the years I've done a lot of, I network with a lot of other business owners and a lot of other professionals, and it's so funny because, literally speaking, you pay attention to this next time you're in a networking event or something. People say hello to each other. First thing they ask for a name. The second thing is like, what do you do for a living?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, like if you pay attention to that, in the US especially, not so much in other countries, but in the US, oh yes, I'm so and so. And then, okay, so what do you do? That's the first thing, because people, it's almost like people size you up and judge you based on your profession.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is, we have so many layers to ourselves. And, like, for example, if I examine myself, so on the outside, yes, I'm in finance. I've been in finance 25 years. That's what I know. I have many, many licenses. I'm, a registered investment advisor. I have all kinds of licenses. I've been doing consulting for many years. So people automatically assume that I'm good with numbers, right? I'm probably, and most people that are, like the CPA types or the attorney, people think you're a dry person. Like they have this, I don't know, preconceived notions about certain professionals. They're supposed to be or
Be.
act or behave a certain way. And the funny thing is, I'm so far like so different than that because number one, I mean, when I first came here, I was like, okay, what can I do? What's the most challenging thing that I can do as a profession? I was like, okay, I'm gonna go be a doctor. So when I attended university, my major was in biochemistry. So I didn't start out with finance. I started out with biochemistry because I was on track to go do medicine. And then I, got introduced to the stock market and Wall Street, and I was just really fascinated by that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I decided to switch tracks. But along the way, when I was in college, I used to teach ballroom dancing. I used to teach ballroom dancing. That was my job while I was in college. And there was a point in time when I was like very, very close. I was like, I really enjoy ballroom dancing. Maybe I should go into professional ballroom dancing. And I thought to myself, I don't know if you can really make money doing this. So maybe I'm just better off just to go finish college and just go into like the real world. Um, when I did the TED talk, it was interesting because I opened the talk and I talked about the fact that I have three children and I wanted my kids to. We have this really expensive summer camp in New York. It's called Camp Breezemont. It's in Armonk and all this. I mean, like, oh my God, it's like $10,000 for one kid to go to this camp. It's really like it's a nice camp. It's beautiful, and kids get to experience a lot of different things, and they get to like literally they have a choice of anything from art to like every sport you can imagine. Like it's just cooking, culinary, you name it, they have it. Like they literally could pick how they want to spend their time. It was a really nice camp. So one of my girlfriends was working at that camp, and she's like, well, you should send your kids. I'm like, I'm a numbers person. I'm like, I'm not spending $30,000 to send three of my children to this camp. So what can I do? What can I do? I said, I'm gonna go and because I like tennis. I play tennis. So I was like, I'm gonna go teach tennis.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally called up I mean, through my girlfriend, I knew who the owner of the camp was. I called him up and I said, I want to come for an interview. So I go for the interview and I was like very, very straightforward. I was like, listen, I'm not a professional tennis player and definitely I'm not a professional coach, but I have two most important things going. I'm a mom. I know how to deal with kids. I know how to handle kids. And I've been in business for a long time. I said, I know how to handle people, how to deal with people. And I really love tennis. So he hired me on the spot. Literally, he was like, okay, when we talked about like paperwork and things like that. But anyway, so why am I telling you this story? People would never think a person who is in finance, who is a financial consultant, who is good with numbers, who is like, all day long, like that's what we do, right? We do research, we do like portfolio
Yeah.
analysis. You would never think that person can be passionate about dancing or can be passionate about tennis to a point where like, I'm gonna go and be a tennis instructor. So that
Well,
that's
I would think actually that it's not because you're passionate about tennis or not. It's the fact that you went ahead and decided to teach tennis without even having your perceived experience or knowledge per se like that a coach would have, but your willingness and your drive to go teach that thing that you were passionate about outweighed all of those experiences, and the person who hired you saw that and decided, you know what, this is passion that cannot be replaced. And who would have thought that a financial advisor is going to now go teach tennis at a camp, right? That's for the camp you
Yeah,
were. Yeah.
it was a day
Yeah.
camp. It's a day camp here in Armonk, New York.
So like
It was great.
you did that so your kids could go to that camp
Yeah.
at a
I
discounted rate?
didn't think it was worthwhile. I mean, let's put it this way. The
I think it's worth it.
the town camp is, let's say, $1,000, right? And this camp is like eight, nine, $10,000. I mean, it's a huge difference. Yeah, I could have sent the kids to town camp, but they would not have had the same experience. And I'm like, what can I do? I will barter my
Services,
skills.
yeah.
I'll barter my skills for the chance for my kids to go to this camp. And again, I'm a numbers person. For me to spend $30,000 on camp, I would have to, like, you have to earn about 50,000 because we have to pay taxes in the United States. I don't know about other countries because
But
I have clients and colleagues and they always complain about taxes, but we have, like, let's say I have to earn 50, pay about 20 in tax. So I'm netting 30,000. So when I'm spending 30,000, it's not really 30,000, it's like 50,000. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
but also at the same time, look at the experience that these kids have for tomorrow. Because what you're doing is you're exposing them to all these different fields in their right. So they have a kitchen. You want to be a cook? Okay, come learn how to do this with a chef. You want to learn how to be a professional ball player? I don't know, but it piques their interest in the future for themselves because now they've experienced it. Now they have a neural pathway that's been carved and paved because of this experience. So I would love that experience for my children, and I think it's genius that you know bartered your services for a discounted rate so that way your kids could go because you also did see the value.
It wasn't even discounted rate. It was free. The kids got to go to camp
Wow,
for free
love that.
in exchange for me to go work there. And it was so funny because I forget what they call it, that the thing syndrome. Like I was obviously nervous. I'm like, oh my God, all these tennis players, they're gonna like,
Imposter.
let's say it's like imposter syndrome totally, because there was this woman who was like a US champion, blah blah blah. She had her three kids going there, and she was doing the same thing I was doing. She was there doing tennis, but she legitimately was a legitimate professional tennis player. But she and I got along so well. And I think the most important thing was that I didn't hide the fact. I'm like, I'm not a professional tennis player. Who
Mm-hmm.
cares? These kids, this camp, they had kids like from age 5 to like whatever, 15, right? You're not going to be like, it wasn't a professional tennis camp. It was there for kids to have a chance to get introduced to the sport and see if they even like it or not, right? And I was just assisting to other, like, it wasn't like I was running the tennis
Right.
department.
No, but it
But
was
the fact
genius what
that,
you did. It was genius what you did.
thank you, but the fact that you have the guts, and I had this girlfriend, it was so funny. And when I told her, I said, I was so proud of myself. I was like bragging. I was like, yeah, I got a job at this Brisbane tennis camp. I mean, Brisbane camp. And she made a comment. She was like, oh, this camp can't be that great because if they hired you as a tennis instructor, I'm like, listen, I said, it's just that totally uncalled. Called her out on it. I'm like, listen, it's totally uncalled for. I said, you know what? I'm a damn good instructor. I said, I may not be like a 5-0 player because they are ranked. Let's say I am a 3-0 player. And then to be a professional player, you have to be 5-0. And it starts with 2.0, then 2.5, 2.5, 3, 3.5,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
on, right?
That's
And I was like, I may not be a professional instructor, but the most important ingredient is empathy, wanting to like really give your knowledge, having the patience, and really making sure the kids are having a good time.
uh,
And the same
you'll
ingredients.
I'm so
What's
sorry.
that?
I'm so sorry. You'll actually make a better instructor than someone who's a professional player because the professional player is going to be looking for perfection in the beginning of everything because they're already where they're at, you know, in their mind, in their body, in their sport.
We complemented each other very well. Me and this other woman who was the professional, we complemented each other very well. I had a
Hmm.
great experience doing that. But what I was going to say, Nar, is that the same thing you can translate into other areas of your life, because I think as long as you're authentic and passionate about whatever it is that you're doing or whatever you believe in, and even I see a lot of times when it comes to like even self-esteem, I have teenage kids now, and they're all like sort of discovering who they are, and they're like learning, about themselves and so on. And I really try to teach them like, look, nobody is perfect. No one is perfect. None of us are perfect, right? But take whatever you have, whatever God has given you. You have strengths and you have weaknesses. But even those weaknesses make you special. For example, when I came here to the United States, obviously I have an accent. I don't
Mm-hmm.
speak perfect English. I wasn't born here. I'm sure when I write and spell, I don't spell perfectly, right? But I'm not afraid of that. I'm like, it is what it is. And when they start making fun of me, I'm like, yeah, how many languages do you speak?
Mm-hmm.
Because most of my clients are American. So, and even before that, so you have to always like, you have to take whatever it is, and then there's another like saying, it says 90% of the outcome is based um on your thinking and how you feel about it. So, like, let's say 90% of the happiness comes from not the occurrence itself. The same thing comes with stress, right? The occurrence itself is the occurrence, but how you handle it and how do you sort of digest it will make the big difference in terms of what type of consequence it's going to have on you as a person or on your life altogether. So for me, it's always been, yes, I make fun of myself. I was like, yeah, like there's a lot of things like, for example, I don't really know how to cook. I laugh about it. People come to my house. I'm like, yeah, go find. I like they. I mean, I'm a little bit exaggerating now. I know where everything is, but not this house, but the house before that. I remember I had just gotten married, and we had company over. We had invited friends over. So these, couples came in, and the women were asking, where is spatula or where is blah blah blah, and I'm like, I have no idea, I don't cook, go find it in the kitchen. They were like looking at me like, what is she talking about, is she crazy? And that's why when I saw the name on your podcast, Bad Moms with Good Talks, I'm like, oh my God, I totally get this girl. I'm sure I'm gonna get along with her. Because, sometimes you can be unconventional, but again, you can take your strengths and your flaws, you can turn them into weapons. Or not even weapons, that's a wrong word. You can turn them into
Tools.
what makes you special. That's what makes you special.
I would even say that when you assess yourself and you understand what your weaknesses are, then you could build upon your strengths better. And you don't need to necessarily focus on the weakness, but addressing that to yourself that you do have the weakness, and maybe to the people who love you, who can help you overcome your weaknesses. I feel like understanding them is going to make us what shifts perspective for us. So we can't keep denying our weaknesses. I feel like that makes us weaker.
Well, let me ask you a question. This is a very interesting question. And I ask this question sometimes during my talks when I do my presentations. If you, let's say you were a student, and if you discovered extra hour a day that you could spend like bettering yourself, would you take this extra hour a day? Would you work on bettering your strengths, or would you work on bettering your weaknesses, strengthening your strengths more, or work on your weaknesses? What would you do? Which do you think is more important?
Like I said, the first thing is to address the weakness that you do have, and you don't work on your weakness. You have to improve upon your strengths, because what is working on your weakness? You just got to address it. Don't deny its existence, and understand how to move forward to build muscle. Like, you're not going to say, "Oh, I'm weak, so I'm not going to increase my weight every week on the dumbbell." You're going to say, "Oh, I'm weak. I'm going to increase the weight every day on my dumbbell." So that's my perspective about what your question is.
It's so funny because it's literally almost 50-50. Every time I ask this question, almost 50% of people say, oh, I would work on my strengths because I want to like concentrate on the thing that I'm really good at, and I'm going to go even the next level up, get even better. And that's my talent. And others say similar to what you say, which is we have to handle the weaknesses, we have to address them, we have to work on them.
No, no,
Uh,
no. That's not what I said. I said you have to address them and work on your strengths. You
That's
don't,
true.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
yes, yes. Address them and work on the strengths. Definitely.
Addressing means recognizing their existence in your life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, what is a weakness? It's something that is not helping you get closer to your goal, pretty much.
Well,
So
I don't know. Maybe they could like for me, maybe they would say my weakness is that I don't know how to cook, for example. I don't know how. I mean, I guess um it's not that I don't know how to cook. I can cook, I can follow instructions. It's just that if you don't do something often enough, it takes you longer and it's a more of a painful experience. I don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it sometimes, but I don't. But you know,
you
if I did it more often, it would be, obviously I would get better at it. But is that considered a weakness? I don't know. For some people it is. Some people it's not.
is it something that you want to do? Is it something that is a passion for you? And maybe you have
No.
like a bad experience, or maybe you have a perspective about what you want your food to look or taste like, and it's not, so you don't do it, so you don't fail yourself, so to say. And maybe it's that feeling in between of wanting to do it and not doing it. I don't know.
Um, I mean, obviously I enjoy good food. I totally appreciate that. It's just that I don't have the patience. And I guess that a lot of it comes from, again, going back and looking back into my past. When I was a kid, I was always studying. I was like a really good student. So my mom and grandma were always cooking. So it was never something that I was expected to do because they were doing that. And I was just like the student, go study, study, study. And then and then once I became an adult, um it was not something, it's not a muscle you use, it wasn't something that I was comfortable doing. So at this point as an adult, I it's funny because they have the those services when you order and they bring everything pre-cut. There's a
Yeah.
few services and then you just have to put it together. Those I love because everything's there. Everything's pre-measured, pre-cut, and I'm just kind of playing with it. I'm just putting it together and then cooking it. I love those. But but figuring it out and then trying to think of like a recipe and all this other stuff, and then I don't know.
No, I get you.
Anyway,
I get you. I started off like that, sort of, but I got good at certain meals. So this is how I overcame that. I got good at making certain foods. Then I got the validation from the family that that was good. And so I repeatedly made those dishes until I got even better at it, and then incorporated other meals in between because, yeah, it's not, I don't want to say it's a muscle memory. It's not, it's just the experience again. And you learn, chop, the measurements by doing it, like you said. So, but maybe don't overwhelm yourself. Get really good at one thing at a time.
I joke about it. I said I'm probably the only Armenian woman who doesn't know how to cook. Again, it's like it's an exaggerated statement. Obviously, I know how to cook, but I just don't cook the way Armenian women cook. It's so funny. But anyway,
But yeah, that
but
gives
I
us
have other
anxiety.
talents.
Yes, you have other talents. And first of all, can you, not first of all, we've been talking for a long time, but can you tell the fine people listening to you today or tomorrow or whenever they come across this recording, uh, your number one financial letdown for yourself? You don't have to get into detail, and what you did to overcome that.
Okay, I'll tell you my number one financial letdown, which I have to share something else, which was part of the TED Talk anyway. So, as a I guess, a financial person, financial consultant, I've always been very good about money, right? So, I mean, I do this for a living, so I understand the importance of saving, importance of investing and compound interest and how that whole thing works and how consistency is so important and dollar cost averaging is so important. So, I've always been very good about that. And then about 3 years ago, unfortunately, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and it
Oh,
literally like changed the trajectory of my life. First of all, I was shocked because I'm healthy. I play tennis, we ski. I mean, I didn't feel sick at all. And all of a sudden, you go to an annual checkup. I went for my annual checkup, and they were like, long story short, I was told that you have breast cancer. And then turns out after when I did the operation, then I wake up and they were like, well, unfortunately, Miss Bruno, it spread into your lymph nodes. So literally, like, completely devastated me, and I wasn't prepared for it. And everything that I was preaching to my clients for 20 years, how you have to have, plan B. What's your plan B? Have emergency money, have this, have that. You have to have at least 6 months of cash flow, emergency money set aside, and that has to be liquid. Da, 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 da. All the things I was preaching to my clients. You should have life insurance. You should have disability insurance. Nobody ever thinks anything is going to happen to them. I mean, I'm a living proof of it. I'm like, when that happened, I was like, holy cow. So I literally had to take 2 years out of my life and go through several surgeries, make some big decisions in terms of what exactly I was going to do, to what degree, like whatever, I ended up choosing to do double mastectomy, even though it was only one breast that was affected. I just was so scared of the whole thing. And then, anyway, it was just crazy. And then going through chemotherapy and radiation, all this other stuff. And when I came out, I just emotionally, I just started doing some crazy irrational things. Like, I would go shopping. Look, we all like shopping. We're all women. Like, I don't know, I like shopping, but I've always been very, very rational about it. Like, I would always know, okay, well, this is my budget. I don't do crazy things. Let's say I do like nice things. I buy nice things, of course. But when I was going through chemotherapy, it was just like next level. I don't know what it was. Maybe because I felt like I'm so close to, like, I came very close to death. And you don't know, but life is short. You don't know what's going to happen. I was so irrational. I literally, first of all, I had lost a lot of weight. So I'm like, I don't know, size 4 or 6, 125 pounds. I had lost so much weight. I was like in my, like 90 pounds. And I went from size 6 to size like 2,
Mm.
even a 0. So and like literally every week I was getting like less, like I would weigh less, and I would go buy more clothes because the ones that weren't fitting me. So my girlfriend and I would go and I would buy these beautiful, expensive clothes, knowing that eventually if I beat this cancer, I'm gonna gain the weight back because this is, obviously I was going through this whole procedure, right? I mean, I had lost my hair. I was just going through the thing, but I was very, very irrational. So what I want to warn people, obviously everything, thank God I'm healthy and, like 3 years out of cancer, thank God. But like going through it and then behaving in a way that as not, first of all, as a financial planner and just as my personality is not me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't do stuff like that. I don't go buy crazy amount of clothes and shoes and bags. It's like, and the funny thing is, even to this day, I have still things in hanging in my closet with tags on that are size 2 that I can't put up, like I can't wear them. They're too small on me. I
Mm-hmm.
look at them, they're so beautiful. I'm like, maybe my daughter will grow up and like it. And like, that's, I think, looking back, that was the thing that um then I regret doing, because I just threw away a bunch of money. But I guess part of it is, people say maybe that's what I had to do to get through what I had to go through, right? So who's to say what's right and what's wrong? But what I would like to, for me, the moral of the story is that um our emotions are very powerful. Our emotions are very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We can do things because of emotions. And that's one of the reasons why, after I beat cancer, I almost came to crossroads, because when actually it was interesting, and I'll tell you the story because I know we're coming up to the hour. Um, it coincided with the 44-day war between Armenia and
Mm.
Azerbaijan because of Artsakh in 2020. So my last radiation was in December of 2020, and the war had ended in November. Obviously, we were all devastated as Armenians. So for me, it was like, it's almost like talking to God. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Like, what's my purpose? Do I go back to doing financial planning, or is there more important things for me to do? Is there, you know, bigger purpose for my life? It's like I felt like God had saved or
Mm-hmm.
spared my life for a reason. So what I decided to do is, because my colleagues were already handling my clients and they were doing a very good job and everybody was, taken care of, I felt like it was an opportunity for me to do other things. So what did I do? I started a charity called Thrive Armenia Foundation. It's a
Mm-hmm.
501(c)(3). It's a pretty good charity, and we do a lot of really good work in Armenia. We've done a lot of different projects. In fact, I just came back from Armenia. We handed over $20,000 in scholarship money. In fact, today I sent three scholarship monies to for three Armenian
That's
girls,
amazing.
two to Spain, to universities in Spain, and one in China. So, anyways, we do a lot of really good work. We did a lot of really good work with veterans and women and refugees or displaced people. So I ended up pouring a lot of my energy and attention to that. And I started a academy called Get Skills Academy, where we teach a lot of different skills to people, to
Mm-hmm.
help them to elevate their ability to earn more income. And a lot of the work that we do is in Armenia, and a lot of it is the formula that we usually use is like, we do everything in free of charge in Armenia, and we outside of Armenia we charge um, nominal fees to just cover our costs and everything else. But we've done some great work. We've had, in fact, there's a woman from California. Her name is, I call her Nano, but Haikanush Hovsepian. She taught graphic design for 8 months. 8 months she taught graphic design to some of our veterans of the 44-day war, and some of them ended up getting jobs. So I think a couple of them, I know they're working with American companies here remotely.
Yeah, yeah.
So we did a lot of really good work. But why am I saying this? Um, and and then and then I became very interested in psychology, behavioral psychology, but especially, psychology through the eyes of finance, right? How
Mm-hmm.
people handle their money through the eyes. And I started traveling a lot, and doing a lot of like public speaking engagements. I did a TED talk. I was in Armenia a couple months ago. I did a couple of different trainings for a company called Pixart. Most people probably know what Pixar is. I did training for another
Yeah.
company. I talk about personal finance, obviously. I do a lot of other speaking engagements. So it's it's very important for me to give back the lessons that I've learned
Mm-hmm.
through my own path and through my own journey, and through my own way of dealing with problems, dealing with obstacles, dealing with surprises and so on, and how you handle it and what you learn from it. So
You're a prime example of what we were talking about earlier on how to develop upon your strengths, even at a time of adversity, such as something so devastating like cancer. I personally lost my mom to cancer in 2007 when she was only 49 years old. I was like 22, and
wow,
and
I'm sorry.
and thank you so much. And it hurts to lose somebody such as your parent, especially someone that's so strong and was your support system in all ways. Like you said, I didn't cook either. I just went to school. I went to UCLA as well. So all I was doing was, going to school. And then my mom dies. And now, oh, guess what? I have to take care of everything else that she left behind because I didn't know what I was doing either. And I actually got into WFG after UCLA. Got my license, my insurance license in 2007. And I also started learning about investments and life insurances and index universal life, all the different types of insurances that exist. But I had never known any of the things that I learned at WFG. No, none of it was taught to us in school. And why this was important, why this led the cancer conversation led to this is because, my mom, I didn't get a chance to learn anything from my mom. The school didn't teach me. whatever they were supposed to teach me. And I learned it after the fact when I got into the real world and now I have to take care of everything, what money actually is. So, from a personal experience, we learn about money way too late. And that is why we become so unconfident when we have to discuss money or when we sit in front of someone who knows money. So, because again, no experience, no understanding of money, that's what led me to my downfall about financial decisions I made. So it all has to do with I feel like a devastating event, which could be,
This brings up a very important point, Nar. One advice I would give to parents is to not hide about money. Like when it comes to money, involve their children in the decision-making process. Like again, when I do my psychology of money talks, I talk a lot about, what is your relationship with money? And it has a lot to do with how you grew up when you were a child. If you grew up in a family where they were talking about money's bad, money's dirty, don't talk about money. They hide about like what they
yeah,
do, what they have, da 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 da. Children grow up in that environment, that's what they are exposed to, right? As opposed to, in a situation in a family where, let's say, the parents, as the kids get older, obviously, but they, involve them in, okay, so we're gonna go on vacation, let's set up a separate fund and we're gonna start saving money for our vacation. Let's be responsible about, let's do the budgeting. Let's see what our budget is. Can we
yeah,
afford to do this? Can we? Oh, we're thinking about buying a house. Getting the kids involved. It's so important. I'll tell you, my kids, I mean, my son is the middle one, 14-year-old. I was just in London for another business conference, and I took him with me.
yeah,
I took him with me. It was interesting because they were teaching, like they were talking about like, how to start an online business and da da da, and he was there, and people were laughing because most of the parents who brought their kids, they were like 16, 18, 20. My son was 14. I'm like, listen, if he's interested, why not? Even if he doesn't retain everything, even if he like, it was so funny because he turned around and he was like, I think they were talking about grand, like 100 grand, 200 grand, and he didn't know what that was. I don't remember. There was some term he didn't know. He turned around like, what is that? And I explained that to him. I realized he's still a kid, like but guess what? At least his brain, he starts to think about like what it's like to even think about having a business
yeah.
that he can do it. Anybody can, like, you know, what does it take to have a business? It doesn't happen overnight, like, and we came home and he was like all fired up. He was like, okay, I'm going to start a Facebook ad agency, da 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 da. And I was like, okay, let's implement some of the things that you've learned. And now I have a couple of clients. I have a client who has a big, um, very successful agency. And I was like, I called him up. I said, can you please mentor him? And then I'm so proud to see, like, again, my kids, they know. I just, they tell them, like, if they want something, I'm like, you're going to earn it. You're going to save it. I try not to spoil them. I don't care,
No,
no matter what.
I'm right there with you. Whenever my son wants to buy something extracurricularly, we say, hey, how much money are you willing to spend on this from your own savings? Because yeah, I can buy it for you, and then what? And then you don't learn anything about money. You don't learn anything about your own pleasures, how much you're willing to spend upon that. You don't learn anything about how to make money. So now, like, he goes to his dad's office and works or does certain things to earn income. And he proudly comes and says, hey, I'd like to purchase this with this. I give him purchasing power. My youngest 7-year-old too. He loves to save his money. He goes, "I got money. I feel like Mr. Krabs, Mom. I got money." And
I definitely agree. I think if you can, to set up a system where the kids start saving money, whatever, some parents choose to give weekly allowance, other parents pay for chores or whatever it is that, like, some kids work for a living, like part-time, like once you're 14 years old, you're actually allowed to work, whatever it may be, rather than if your kid comes and says, I want to buy an Xbox or da da da, whatever it is that they want. I mean, obviously I'm not talking about Christmas, but you should just say, you know what? Give them the power to choose how they want to spend their money.
Exactly.
Like you said, teach them how to learn how to save, how to budget, and have that delayed gratification. You want something today, maybe a week from now, a month from now, you're not gonna want it anymore.
It's
So
100% of the time it's worked. Where I haven't purchased it at the time that they've wanted it, and they didn't want it anymore after the moment of emotional spike was over. Because we did discuss emotional purchases, and children are number one at emotional purchases. And then we grow up as children, we grow up into adults who don't know any better about money and make these emotional purchases. So all we really are just kids in adult bodies buying these things.
well, one thing I would suggest is the way I look at when I spend money, not as much now, but before when I used to be a ballroom dance instructor in college, when I would go to spend money, I would like in my mind, I would say, how many hours of training do I have to do to earn this? Let's say I wanted to buy a dress or bag or whatever, and let's say it costs $300. I would like, oh my God, I have to have 6 sessions of like training, right? In order for me to earn this again. Is this worth 6 hours of my time? Do I really want to trade 6 hours of my time for this? So instead of just looking at dollars and like, okay, it's X dollars, it's not X dollars, it's your life because you're
Exactly.
earning this money, you're having to exchange your time for money.
Oh, that's the, I feel like that's the one perspective that could shift for so many people and have them immediately change their life as far as in regards to financials, by thinking about their time being spent versus the money being earned. And then what does that mean for people? Like for me, I love money, but I love my time as well. And so there's things that I've traded for that time, and I do not regret it at all.
100%. And one other thing I would say is, we all, we will just try to get to that point. It's like I used to ask my clients, what's your number? Like, what's your number? And I was like, what does that mean? What's your number? Because we all have a number, which means, at what point do you have to get to what point where you no longer have to trade your time for money? Because the way to achieve freedom, when you are being a responsible human being, when you are earning your income and you're saving some of it, when you're investing it consistently, when you're having that delayed gratification and not going crazy, doing crazy things and stuff like that, why are you doing all these things, right? Because you want to get to a point where you have financial freedom. What does that mean to have financial freedom? That means that you no longer have to work for a living and you do things because you like and enjoy doing them rather than having to do them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the concept of financial freedom. And you're going to get there's one way or the other. So the sooner you start thinking in that concept of, okay, I everything I do is for the fact that I'm going to get to a point where my money is going to start earning money. I'm going to have passive income so that I no longer have to trade my time. I mean, it's not easy, it takes a lot of discipline to do it, but it can be done. You literally can become financially free within 20 years. It is doable. In fact, I have slides. Next time if I come, I'll bring some. I'll be more
She's all like
prepared
20
like
years.
numbers. But you can, like I did a lecture the other day for college students, and I was telling them if you are, I think, at the age of 18, if you just save $100 a month from the age of 18 to till until retirement age, I forget, you could have $1 million just by saving $100 a month, which is nothing, right? And just earning, I think I calculated based on 8% rate of return. So if you start saving $100 a month, which is very doable, 25 bucks a week,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like there was I used to do another seminar back in the day when I was at Solomon Smith Barney. The way I grew my book of business, I used to do a seminar called Smart Women Finish Rich. It was based on a book written by David Buck called Smart Women Finish Rich. And one of the slides on the seminar was about the latte factor. You know, like how we used to go to Starbucks and buy latte coffee
Mm-hmm.
to drink. And basically the premise of the book and the seminar was, rather than going to Starbucks and spending your $4 back in the day, like this is 20 years back when the coffee was only $4. It's more now, right? But back then it was like $4. So I used to teach my clients, if you set up a Roth IRA, which is a special type of a retirement account where
Mm-hmm.
you put like money on an after tax basis and it grows tax free and can come out tax free at retirement. So if you set up a Roth IRA at the age of 18 or 20, and you put in just $4 a day, it's all it takes. I think at the time we were calculating 10% rate of return. And, again, fast forward, to age 65, you could have seven figures. You can have over $1 million of accumulated assets based on 10% rate of return.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember my friends used to nickname me, they used to call me the latte factor. Like they called me the latte factor because that's what I used to use. But my point is, it is very much doable. It is very much doable. And the biggest asset that we have, you mentioned something very important, which is time. It's more valuable than money. Time is more valuable than money. All these young kids, it's so funny because, I work with younger people now and I work with older people. And one thing I try to preach to them, like, you have the most important thing going for you is the time, because that compounding effect is like this, according to Albert Einstein, is like the sixth wonder of the world, literally the sixth wonder of the world, because compounding is this, it's just this phenomenon where your money starts
Mm-hmm.
just accumulating. And then next thing you know, if you look at the slides of it goes like this and then boom, that's exactly what happens to your accumulated assets. It's just goes up. So, as it accumulates, it's like the snowballing effect. But anyway, so I would definitely say, that just it is possible. I hope I was able to answer your questions, because there's so much we can just, go into so many different directions. But you know, I would say, my sort of lasting, like, advice that I want to leave you with is, be consistent, be patient, look for the long term, invest for the long term. Don't let emotions get the better, side of you. We have this another theory called loss aversion theory. Basically, what it says is that we as human beings are much more, um, we get a lot, like twice as much affected with the loss as opposed to the gain. So let's just say, and I'll give you an examples next time. I'll bring more specific examples.
Mm-hmm.
So you would rather avoid, let's say, 10% or 20% loss, even if you have a bigger chance of making that gain. People they just, they have two times more, literally experience more pain when they're losing as opposed to gaining. It's such an
Yeah.
interesting phenomenon. And we'll talk about it.
That's why people are just so attracted to the macabre and everything that just is dark and bleak. I feel like people are just more attracted to it, and sad stories and whatnot. They're just more fascinating to people. But I feel like sad stories that end up, with optimism and growth and strength, those are the stories that can be shared, like the one that you shared with us about your breast cancer, about overcoming it, about your understanding of money and finances and life. And I don't know, it's just we're all here for a very short time, and we're here to teach each other along the way. And I love that you didn't cave, that you only became stronger and extended yourself to other people who are now taking advantage of your services, at pretty much no cost to them. So I praise you. I thank you for doing what you do for the nonprofits in Armenia. Lord knows those people over there need all the help they can get. So I thank you very much for doing that on our behalf. But that does not mean that we should just rely on you doing it. That means that we should be inspired by people like you, to help those who need our help the most. And even in our own adversity, We have to perform and we have to provide service for other people's, so that way we can come out of our own adversity.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree with you more. Definitely. Definitely, definitely, definitely. I just want for all of us to live authentic lives. Remember that every day that we have this day, this beautiful conversation we had together, this day, once we pass it, you cannot go and recover it. You cannot go and relive it again. It's gone. So, especially like I said, for me coming so close to like not knowing am I gonna survive or not? Like it is so like it's like in my mind. I always look back, I'm like, when I'm ready, like when I'm dying, I don't want to have a lot of regrets. Like I literally like picture myself. It's crazy. I picture myself literally ready to go, feet forward, like, and I don't want to look back and say, I could have done this, should have done this. I wish I had taken that opportunity, or I wish I had done this, the thing that I really wanted to do. Just do it now. It's interesting.
Yes.
People have different personalities, and some people like, oh, why you like, don't do this, or don't go there, or don't travel, and da 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 da, and we'll do it next year, we'll do it in the future, and then future may not come. So of course, everything has to be in balance, right? None, like I said, neither extremes are okay, neither extremes are good. But I think the best thing we can do for ourselves is be true to ourselves and just be happy who you are, and just remember, no one is perfect. I'm not perfect, and it's okay. It's okay. And to have flaws is okay. And, like I said, those are the ones that make you unique person that you are.
We need to understand that, and we need to grow from it and learn from each other. Thank you so much. I hope you had a good talk with Bad Moms, everyone. I don't know which camera am I at. Number 2. I hope you took something from this, anything at all, really, just to help elevate your own personal growth. If you have any questions you want to ask Anna, we will include the link. Um, can we do that, Christian? Can we put a link
Absolutely,
for her,
yes.
the video for her, so they can contact her? Anyway, we'll figure it out. I'll get that done. But if you want to reach Anna, you can find her on LinkedIn. What is it, Anna Bruno on
So
LinkedIn?
yes, I'm Anna Bruno on LinkedIn, and I'm the co-founder of Acceleration Circle, which is a community for people who want to come and elevate themselves, especially people who want to start businesses or scale their businesses. We have a lot of different professionals and experts. They have a chance to mingle with them and ask questions, and we offer a lot of different, like I said, skills based classes. Our next one coming up is called Persuasion Engineering. It's going to be a 3-day masterclass starting on September 21st. And we're going to have an amazing person coming in to talk about basically how to do ethical, to be persuasive ethically, and how to be resilient. So I'm very excited about that one.
Very good, very good. Ethical persuasion as opposed to the 48 laws of power, which relies heavily on manipulation. I couldn't resonate with that book at all. You got to be a psychopath, maybe. I don't know. All right. We could talk on and on and on and on, and I can't understand how it lasts so long. But that was another too short reference if you're from Cali. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for staying up with me. You're all the way from New York. Interesting. It's 9/11. Well, not anymore for you, I suppose. But yeah, we can have another discussion about that. My heart goes out to the families who've lost people at 9/11. Devastating for everyone involved, no matter what side you're on. I don't know.
Yes.
All right,
Well,
guys. Yes,
good night, my dear. Thank you for having me. I had a really very nice time speaking with you, and I hope we can do this again.
I hope so too. Thank you so much, Anna. I hope to see you again and talk to you. Maybe see you in person at the vault one of these days.
Yeah, definitely.
Love you guys. Have a good night. Please subscribe to Red Angeles Network on YouTube and all other channels, stations. I'll figure out the word for it. And then, yeah, see you next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Don't be late because we're going to be. He hated it.
Let it drop.